Making your own taco and chili seasoning is super easy. I get my recipe off of gimmedelicious.com, and I always make a double batch. And these are the spices that I use: chili powder, cumin, paprika, salt, garlic powder, onion, granulated onion, oregano, and black pepper. And then just to give my own spin on it, I use chipotle pepper. I use this seasoning in my chili, and if I make jambalaya also. I've talked about how I drink my coffee on beef, butter, bacon, and egg. Normally I like pure stevia drops, and I do not like the taste of coffee black. So I do put about a tablespoon of butter in it, which is basically cream. And then I do put in a whole egg, which creates a really great frothiness. And it makes the taste of black coffee a little less bitter. Okay, we just got back from the grocery store. Small haul here. I'm making some baby back ribs tonight. So I got 2 full racks here, a couple of veggies for the family, Brussels sprouts and green beans. We are getting low on the balsamic and rosemary vegetable seasoning, so I got a couple of individual packs. For Brussels sprouts, that's the balsamic and roasted onion. Oh, I think the broccoli seasoning is garlic and roasted onion, maybe. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was the Brussels sprout one. And the one for green beans is sesame garlic, but I kind of play mix and match, but I haven't had this one in a while. We used up all of our sugar-free ketchup. I was actually kind of surprised by this one because it is sweetened with stevia. Not too bad. And I got this pork rub to try. Walmart only had the small container, and it has no sugar in it. Where's the ingredients? Somewhere. There it is. Okay. No sugar, no MSG, which I don't really worry about there. So I will get started on making my ribs for supper tonight. I'm gonna prepare my ribs to cook. I've got a baking sheet with aluminum foil in the bottom because after I place these on the smoker, I will reuse the pan once they're cooked. So I just take off the aluminum foil and put the cooked ribs on the baking sheet. You want your ribs to be very dry before you get started, so I lay down some paper towels and blot off the backside of the ribs with that. And I always remove the silver skin on the inside of the ribs. You can cook it with it on. It's a wonderful source of collagen, but I like the flavors from the seasoning to soak into both sides of the ribs. So the silver skin was actually kind of loose on these ribs, but you can use a dull knife to get underneath. And then if you have a hard time gripping that tissue, you can grab a paper towel, and that will allow you to hold on to that and tear it off easily. So once I've got these blotted dry on both sides, then I apply a liberal amount of seasoning onto the ribs, and I will do that with both, and they will be ready to throw on the smoker. Once my ribs have reached 165 degrees, I will wrap them in butcher paper. I always wrap them kind of diagonally, so there is a tail in one of the corners that I will tuck underneath of the wrapping, so that way both ends are covered. And once I get my ribs wrapped up, I will use the meat thermometer to kind of pin it to the meat so it doesn't come unwrapped or loosened up. I try to get them wrapped pretty tightly. Then I will throw the ribs back on the smoker. This will help retain the moisture and still allow some smoke flavor into the ribs. You can use aluminum foil, but it will retain more moisture and not help anymore with creating that bark. I do generally smoke all my meat on the smoker at about 225 degrees. So while we were out, my pellet grill actually ended up going out. I think the pellets got wet and compacted in the auger. So I did have to place the ribs in the oven. I put them in at 300 until they came up to about 195. They will continue cooking for a few minutes after you remove them from the oven. And then you should let your ribs rest after removing them from the heat. And that way all of the moisture can redistribute. And as the ribs continue to cook, they'll come up to temperature. But we were just too hungry, so I did go ahead and eat. I've got green beans on the stove. I sauteed them instead of roasting them in the oven. I've got some nice char marks on them that will be good, and I used the sesame garlic veggie roaster packet. Time for the bone pull test. It would probably pull out more cleanly if I had let it rest long enough, but the meat still came off the bone pretty easily. I feel like the best way to make hard-boiled eggs is one of the most hotly debated topics since potato salad. You know what I'm talking about, Southern aunties. You gotta say aunties and not aunties. Anyway, I tried it once in the Instant Pot and it was a disaster, so I vowed never again would I ever deviate from the traditional method of making hard-boiled eggs, which has never, ever let me down. So here's how I do mine. I've got a large saucepan of water coming to a rolling boil. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it down a little bit. I drop my eggs in with tongs because I can gently place them in the water, and I just go through. I'm making a dozen boiled eggs because I'm making deviled eggs for a game night tomorrow night, and I will make some homemade mayonnaise to go in that. And I use more water than I should just because once you put the eggs in there, the temperature of the water drops, and the key is to get the water boiling, or keep the water boiling as much as possible. So the water will stop boiling when you put them in. But if you have more water in there, the temperature does not go down as much. So once I get all my eggs in, I actually take a Pyrex and scoop some of the water out. So that the pot doesn't boil. I bring it back up to a rolling boil as fast as possible. And once I have a rolling boil going, I go for 12 minutes. And then I've got some ice right here. I use the tongs to get them out of the water as quickly as possible and into the ice water as fast as possible. And then I just let it sit there for however long until all the ice is melted or I'm ready to peel them. And I'll show you how well they peel and how I do that here in a little bit. Here's my setup for peeling eggs. I always do it on a paper towel to help prevent puddles on my counter and also for easy cleanup of the shells. Once I've got the shell removed from the egg, I put it back in the water to rinse off the little bits of shell that sometimes stick. The only issues I had, or that I ever really have with peeling hard-boiled eggs, is sometimes you get eggs where the membrane is very tough or the shell is very strong, which is actually a pretty good indicator of the health of the chicken and of the eggs. So I'm not too mad about that, but it does keep me from being able to peel off the whole shell in like 1 to 2 pieces. I am going to make a homemade mayonnaise using half bacon grease and half melted butter as the fat source. This recipe comes from Chris Cook's Nashville, but there's several influencers who have made baconaise with bacon grease or butter mayo with melted butter, and I didn't have enough bacon to use just the bacon grease. So for this, I just used 1 large egg separated, apple cider vinegar. I used spicy brown mustard, salt, and your melted butter. You're going to blend the yolk and the seasonings together, then start adding your melted fat source, drizzling a little bit at a time as you blend or whisk. And then the secret to making this spreadable is to add the egg white back into the mixture once it's all emulsified, and then refrigerate it to get it set up. This recipe did check out. The mayonnaise was definitely spreadable while it was still cold, which was great because I was using it for my deviled eggs. Got a Costco and Walmart grocery haul here. Not for me items first. Got some more vegetables for the boys. Got some more vegetable seasoning because I'm getting low, and I found it interesting that they are not marketing this as broccoli seasoning anymore. I guess they caught on that they are pretty much all interchangeable. Vanilla, I'm not planning on making anything with that anytime soon, but it was a really great deal. I think $11, and normally 16 ounces has been about $20 in the past. Saw these at Costco. I don't usually buy this brand because I've noticed their cheese crisps tend to be a little higher in carbohydrates. So I got this for my husband to try. The added sugars is 0. Sugar is in the ingredients list, so there can be anywhere between 0 and 0.5 grams of sugar in a serving. So we have a game night coming up this weekend. There will be lots of snacking going on, and that'll be something that my husband can choose to have if he wants. If I wasn't doing beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, I would try some. Eggs for the game night, I'm gonna make a whole bunch of deviled eggs, and I also plan on making a bunch of bacon wrapped sausages. I feel like the cost of these is extremely high, so next time they go on sale, maybe I'll stock up. And then I got a pork belly. I got the smallest one that they had there, $4 a pound, not bad. Sorry, I got an alert and it kept stopping my video. So what I'm planning on doing with this is half of it I'm either going to smoke or slow roast in the oven, depending on if my smoker wants to function. And the other half I'm gonna look up a recipe and find something to do with it. I might throw it in the freezer for now. So I am going to try something different today. I was thinking that an omelet filled with cheese and bacon and sausage sounded really good, but unfortunately I'm not eating dairy right now. So I thought I would do a little experiment. Instead of filling the omelet with cheese, I'm going to make an egg white omelet and then use the yolks to make a creamy sauce that I will combine with my fillings and see how that works inside of an omelet. I'm gonna take the egg yolks first, and I don't want them to be cold when I put them in the omelet. So the way I'm going to make my sauce is I have some butter melted in a pan on the warmer that I cooked the sausage on, and I'm gonna combine it with the yolks. Hopefully the warmer isn't warm enough to actually cook and solidify the yolks. Whisk those in a little bit, and hopefully I can just warm those through. I'm gonna go ahead and get my omelet started. I've got this on the lowest heat. I'm gonna turn it up just a tad. Always salt and pepper everything. I'm covering this up just to help it heat through evenly. This is how I do my regular fried eggs to prevent them from getting the yolk overcooked. And I'm just combining this yolk and butter together, and all of the bits and pieces from the sausage that I cooked. The yolks seem to be like they're getting a little bit too heated and thickening up, so I'm moving the pan off of the burner. Don't you wish your egg yolks looked that nice? It's really dark. I'm pretty sure this company probably feeds their chicken some marigolds or something with beta carotene in it to make their yolks darker. There's only so much yellow you can get in your yolks from just eating bugs and things like that. That's what my chickens eat, and their yolks are not that yellow. The top of the egg whites are fully solid, so what I'm going to do is scoop this on top. It's basically just like a big over medium egg. And add my toppings. And I'm gonna get this off the heat as soon as I can because I don't want this egg yolk to cook at all. But that looks nice. I never really have much luck with making pretty omelets. I'm gonna get this plated up and I'll show you. Here is the finished product. It looks like I did get a little hole in there and some of the good stuff is leaking out, but let's cut into it and see. Yeah, it looks like it turned out basically just like a giant over medium egg with sausage and bacon on it, but I'm sure it's gonna be delicious. Now I'm cooking egg roll in a bowl. I think this recipe is probably one of the first ones anyone who is doing a low-carb diet learns. This particular recipe is from Keto Connect. I'm starting off with a pound of breakfast sausage patties, and I will add some soy sauce and supposed to add broth, but I didn't have any, so I just did some water. And mix that up and let it reduce down a little bit. Then you'll add your other ingredients, which are garlic, and ginger, The recipe also calls for sriracha, but I don't care for it, so I don't use it. Once you've got that mixed up fairly well, then you'll add your cabbage. You can also use some other blend like broccoli slaw or those power blends that have different greens in it are good. But I just happen to have some leftover cabbage. Whenever I add the cabbage, I just turn the stove off and put the lid on the pan and let it slowly wilt. The longer you leave it in there, the softer the cabbage will be. Or if you like your cabbage crunchy, don't wait very long. Once you've got your desired doneness, then you add your sesame oil and your sesame seeds on top. I'm going to make my deviled eggs, but look how perfect those yolks are. I'm going to be using my homemade butter bacon mayonnaise that I showed the recipe for earlier. And it was still pretty thick, so I ended up adding Greek yogurt, and I forgot that it is not part of the beef, bacon, butter, and eggs challenge, but oh well. It did help thin out the yolks. I'm going to add some spicy mustard and smoked paprika, salt, pepper, and chipotle powder. I messed around with the amounts quite a bit, so I don't have any measurements for you. Once you have the consistency and the flavor that you want, I always put the yolks into a Ziploc bag to put on the eggs without too much of a mess. I'm going to add bacon pieces to half of the deviled eggs. And then, of course, I will dust with some smoked paprika. there are my deviled eggs. They were a pretty big hit at the social gathering.